Привет всем! Welcome to this review looking at relatively new Zvezda kit of the MI-8 MT helicopter from Zvezda. Here's the huge big box. What's in the back? Picture of the built model. Why did I choose this one? Year of the helicopter, but also I see this particular aircraft fly over my house nearly every single day. But I do like the MI-8. It has been long overdue. We've got some extras to look at as well. Let's just see what's inside the box as it comes. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags of sprues. Let's open them up. Let's start with the instructions. Okay, first let's say Спасибо большое. Упаковщик номер 14 did a great job on the packing. At the very start of the instructions, we get offered with variants of construction. You can mix and match these. But in principle, we've got one version with everything shut up, all the doors, hatches, etc., and the engine bay closed, and the second version shows the engine on display, open doors, etc., etc. Of course, mix and match between them as you feel fit. Here is the parts tree diagram. And I'll tell you now that this kit as well, obviously the airframe, has a lot to do with the Mi-24 Hind. And therefore you're going to see a few similarities between this kit and the Zvezda Mi-24s. You get a very comprehensively sort of detailed cabin, bulkhead, all sorts of details. There's paint call-outs, etc. That goes onto a cargo bed here. Of point to note as well, we've got some detailed upper instrumentation that will be above the pilot's heads. On the side here, you're assembling various sub-assemblies. Here is the gear shaft, or the gear for the rotor, and then you can assemble 2 times turbine engines, and then they get placed onto this top gondola area here. You've got the seats that are included that in this instance look as if they're folded up and placed against the fuselage walls. Various portholes going on. There's a call out there for the fire extinguisher, and then by step 17 this thing sort of gets sandwiched together. Sort of interesting, because usually you typically see the cabin is built up like a box type structure and then it goes within the fuselage, but on this type of example it looks to be a little bit different in terms of construction. Here's the rather lacking, and this is what you see more and more now, Zvezda have a mixture of detailed parts and totally flat panels, and they rely on decals for their depiction of the instrumentation. This is the main innovation of the kit in the tail boom. There was critique previously about the Mi-24s, which was about the lack of surface detailing and riveting. As you're going to see in a minute, that is not the case on this kit. They've done an amazing job, but in order to preserve that detail, they've got quite an interesting construction in order to make the rear tail boom. We'll have a look at that in a second when I show you the parts. By step 23, it looks like you're assembling weapons, etc. And these look like the big flotation bags that go on the side here. And then also the big piece of glazing for the nose goes on. The landing gear sort of going on by this step here, and then also you've got some call outs for the different variants as well in terms of the painting instructions, which I'll show you. Here we've got the rear clamshell doors. You can see them in a minute. They've actually composed of 2 parts because they wanted to depict detail on the inner portion as well as the outer portion. And this type of helicopter was, or maybe still is, the most heavily armed attack helicopter in the world in terms of the amount of ordnance it can carry. So it's got a very large sponsons that get attached to the side there that can carry a variety of ordnance. There's a good illustration of the difference between the opened or the closed hatches there when it comes to that construction step. And I think we're at the very last step by stage 41, in which we attach the rotor onto the fuselage. Great thing about this kit as well is that I think, like a lot of helicopters, you can just dry fit that on, so not having to worry about having the rotor on all the time. And also to note there as well, you've got some steps. And then we've got the technical inscriptions, basically where you put the stencils, etc. on a couple of the versions. They've done quite well in terms of the marking variants. The box art depicts a Afghanistan aircraft. You'll see in all of these that they all show them with the ordnance racking or the pylon supports. But the one that I'm dubious about is this one, even though it is marked up as VVS России, so the actual Air Force, yeah, the Air and Space Force of Russia. This is like an orange one, which I quite like the look of, but it's still got these big pylon attachments. I would be tempted to leave them off and have a, you know, not maybe a civilian, but an unarmed version. And this is probably, an interesting aircraft in which we've got a Cuban Air Force MI-8. Don't see many MI-8s in the Cuban marking, so that's really cool. And also is that Slovenian? Yeah, Slovakia S4 in 2002 as part of the S4. So quite a few markings. Here's the water stickers. They're pretty good, not the best, but you can work with them in many cases. I have had some instances of, you know, not being absolutely amazing, but they generally are okay. And in my particular case, I'm waiting for a civilian version of this MI-8, so I'm not going to be building this one straight away. Anyways, let's have a look at the parts in detail. We'll start off with these 3 sprues that were within one bag. Clearly the rotors are the main feature here. They've been molded to show them drooped in the rested configuration. Quite important actually to show that, because the rotors do, obviously, they do sag underneath their own weight. And on here I believe is, yeah, mainly the pylons for the ordnance. Let me zoom you in and show you some detail. Start off with showing off the wheels, which have got some sidewall detail. They're molded in 2 halves, not bad at all. The rotors themselves have got all the relevant detail, including the hinge type connections. Many fine detailed parts included, and the moulding is absolutely first rate. There's no mention of flash or anything like that. This is one of the seats. As I mentioned before, they are all in the folded configuration. I think they've done quite a good job with these pylons as well, you know, making it quite simple to construct. And I believe that these are the heat suppressors for the exhausts. And this is that beacon that goes on the back. I believe this is an infrared suppressor. And some quite nice detail on that interior face there of that dispenser. 2 further sprues to show you. The first one being the turbines and gearbox, and the second one being some of the ordnance. Let's have a look in detail once again. There we are. There is the gearbox, and of course you get both the turbines. They're okay, limited by, of course, injection molding, but I think they would give you a pretty fair start if you were into super detailing the engines and want to do something spectacular in terms of showing them off. And here we are, a sprue with much, you know, with a lot of the ordnance on, including AT4s, I believe these are. Nerd block rocket launchers, additional fuel tanks, And I'll just turn this over to show you further detail on the rocket pods. They've done a really good job with the ordnance, I would say. Further 3 sprues. This one containing quite a lot of the cabin detail. The cabin flooring here, it's got a lot of, or either it could actually be the roof. I think it's the floor of the cabin, and it's got a lot of detail on there, including raised and recessed detailing. So they've gone to that extent even on the interior. That's part of the, I think that might be an APU inlet, I'm not too sure, but it goes on top of that gondola in between the 2 turbines. Here's the door, part of the rotor assembly. On this sprue, bulkheads, tail rotor, and also the interior cabin. And these are highlight parts, the really nicely riveted tail boom. On this sprue, this is the upper part of the interior cabin. Here are the clamshell doors, and there is all that detail that we have on the interior and on the exterior. Let me just show you in detail now. Just show you some of the nice surface detail that's been rendered really well by Zvezda. In particular this tail boom here with all that riveting. All raised riveting as helicopters should be, and they've got them on all parts. The makeup is in 4 parts because they've got them down the seam line so that you don't damage any of the detailing. Here's the dorsal portion of the fuselage. Again, excellent surface detail. It is really well done. Fortunately, there's no big seam running straight through. You've got nice one big flat part to deal with. Rear clamshell door, I'll be repeating myself time and time again, all riveted structure, and the interiors of the clamshell showing that ribbing structure as well. They've done a really great job in showing a helicopter exactly how a helicopter should look, as opposed to the Mi-24s. If only they'd done it on their Mi-24s. Regardless, we've got the Mi-8, and I'm sure we're going to see other variants soon. Just show you these bulkheads. Again, great job showing some detail on there. A real mystery why they don't detail the actual pilot's instrumentation, but they provide all this amazing detail on these parts. Regardless, we've got a solution to that, as I'll show you in the aftermarket section of this video. And these are the sides of the tail booms. Again, the detail speaks for itself. And here's that interior part of the cabin with the portholes. Here are the fuselage halves on one sprue, making me feel as if I think other versions are coming of this particular aircraft. I'll zoom in again to show you the detail. Again, excellent rendered detail. One of these reviewers made some stupid comments saying that this was not a riveted helicopter and that they did exactly the Mi-24. Well, here's proof positive that they have not done it like the Mi-24, and they have detailed it sufficiently, as far as I can see, in terms of riveting, panel lines, etc. I think they've done a really great job. They've obviously listened to what people wanted and have provided the goods. And here's the definite indicator that we're going to get other versions. We've actually got 3 glazings provided. Obviously this is the one that we use. Remember that the Zvezda transparent parts are actually flexible. You can actually flex them, but they are perfectly clear. Really nice, easy to work with, and will do the job. Okay, we'll talk about extras. This is the letdown on this kit, and everybody noticed it. On the box art, you've got this very distinctive feature in the Mi-8, a winch that is not provided within the kit. Fortunately, I have a 3D printed winch that I can add onto my build. So that's my first piece of extra detail. In addition to that, I've got some resin wheels, just because they were cheap, and I know this brand SMK, they make absolutely awesome resin aftermarket wheels. Pretty cheap edition. Got a nice sidewall detail, and they're compatible with the kit undercarriage as well. Show you up close the detail on these, the large wheels that have actually got a weighted effect on them. Obviously better than the plastic parts. Resin pilot, co-pilot seats with all the harnesses etc. rendered on. These are just, you know, easy additions just to bring the cockpit up a notch. Some further 3D printed details that are freebie. Of note are those cabin fans that you can see just at the top in the middle. A couple of sway braces for the pylons. And these, I believe, are mirrors, I think, for the actual aircraft. I need to check that. And then some wipers and probably some aerials. I have two sets of SX Art Studio paint masks. The first one being for the glazing. It's made out of this yellow tape, very similar to the Japanese or the Edouard type style masking. And you get interior and exterior in this set. And also, because I'm extremely lazy, I got the MI-24 blades, probably from the memory of spending a day painting my MI-24 rotor blades, because the masking is kind of, well, it's not tricky, it's just laborious. And of course, our gold standard upgrade has to be from Quintus Studio, specifically made for this MI-8 MT kit. It's the interior 3D decal, which obviously alleviates the problem of the Zvezda kit being devoid of any other detail other than, let me put this side by side. This is what you get in terms of detail provided, which is just that water sticker there. It's not actually too bad. If it was on a detailed part instead of a flat panel, I think that would look pretty good, but nothing can beat the detail rendered by these 3D decals from Quinta, which will really bring this kit up a notch or two. That rounds off the review. Hope you found it useful. We will be building it in the future, but I don't think it will be this year. So until the next one, see you soon.